Hello everyone, how are you all doing today? Excuse my brief delay. I got two cameras going right now. One is from the Welcome to the Blue Couching Company, and the other was from my Facebook page. So I wanted to try to walk and chew gum again today to see what I can do. So I'll be looking here and looking there, and you all just bear with me. I don't have technicians and camera people and all of that stuff to help me with any of this, so I have to do it all. But again, I just want to welcome you to the Big Thumbs Up Thursday. This is our second week doing the Big Thumbs Up, and I am delighted to be with you. I am your host, Tommi Faye Fulton, author of Love Beyond Pain, Walk and Run While Feeling Wounded. And in my book, I just share and discuss some of my own personal stories and some of my own personal experiences and what I had to go through emotional, traumatic pain, and how I had to make a decision whether I was going to live or die dealing with emotional trauma. And so in there, I just give some techniques and share with you my stories and share with you some scriptures in the Word of God that helped me get through a lot of my emotional pains. And so today, again, we're going to do a meal, and I'm going to try to walk and chew gum, like I said, trying to talk to you all and share with you all, as well as show you a meal that we'll be preparing today. It's called the 3-bean chicken soup, and it's very delicious. And so I did pre-cook everything, and so I'm just going to show you what I've cooked and how to put it together. And if you're interested in preparing it for your family, you can go to my website, lovebeyondpain.com, and if you go into the blog section there, under recipes, you'll see the entire recipe there with the ingredients as well as the instructions on how to prepare this delicious meal. And generally what I do is I try to make enough that I can put it in containers, and little small containers like that, and I freeze it. So I make about maybe 7 or 8 containers, and I put them in the freezer and freeze them. So if I ever get hungry and I don't feel like preparing a large meal, it's great for lunch. I just take it out and let it thaw out a little bit and heat it up in the microwave. And it's also great for dinner as well. And it most certainly will go really nice with that banana bread loaf that I showed you all on last week. So I want to just get started. Again, please do visit my page at lovebeyondpain.com, as well as my Facebook page. You'll find me under Faye Thomas Fulton. And you'll also find me under the Blue Couching Company, which is my podcast page. But I also share with young folks that's going through emotional pains and traumas from relationships and so forth. And sometimes they may think that we haven't gone through what they're going through, but we have. And so there I just share a lot of quotes and encouraging words and affirmations and so forth. And so I'm coming to you live from the Blue Couching Company, as well as from my personal Facebook page, Faye Thomas Fulton. And so I hope that someone will join me today. And I want to read a scripture first, because today in particular, I am going to be talking directly to our young people. And there's so much that's going on in the world, and young people need to know that they have someone on their side that loves them, can give them leadership, can give them direction, can give them sound advice, and can pray with them and let them know that we believe in them no matter what they're going through in life and no matter what they have been through. All is not lost. I just want to briefly read this to you, though, for my young people. If you read Proverbs, it talks a lot about your youth, and it gives you instructions. And so in the 31st book of Proverbs, it says that this is King Lemuel, and King Lemuel's mother was speaking to him, and she said this. She said, the sayings of King Lemuel, and this contains a message that was taught to him by his mother. And she said, "O my son, O son of my womb, O son of my vows, or son of my marriage." She says, "Do not waste your strength on women, on those who ruin kings." Okay? And she goes on to say, "It is not for kings, O Lemuel, to guzzle wine. Rulers should not crave alcohol, for they drink, they may forget the law and not give justice to the oppressed. Alcohol is for the dying and wine for those in bitter distress. Let them drink to forget their poverty and remember their troubles no more. Speak up for those who cannot speak for themselves and ensure justice for those being crushed. Yes, speak up for the poor and the helpless and see that they get justice." So it's a lot said in that particular, just those few verses. Speaking to King Lemuel, his mother is giving him advice as him being one that's in leadership, one that's a king, and it's a ruler over people. And I would say to you young people today is that if you have aspirations to be in leadership, if you have aspirations to govern and to lead others, no matter what you do in life or where you want to go in life, there's just certain things that you have to be careful of and to not indulge in so much, because those things can sidetrack you. And you may want to have dreams, and you have all these dreams and all of these desires that you want to be a part of, but you can easily make one mistake and sidetrack your entire life. It doesn't mean that your life is over. It just means that you're going to have to work extra hard or a little bit harder, or you may be cumbersome or burdened down with other issues that have distracted you from your goal. And so I just want to share a little bit with you personal about my own story when I was a young girl. And hopefully some of you will get something out of it and benefit from it and not make the same mistakes that I made as a young teenager. And so just going back a little bit, I was the sixth child of 9 children. And so my mom also, she married young, but back in those days, marrying at 14, 15, 16, 17 was not uncommon. And the women back in those days, they had a lot of children because they were homemakers and they were mothers and they took care of the home and so forth. And that was the era of my mother. And so when we came along, we were still in between that era and time that we valued and still value family. And that's where I got my values and morals from my parents. But back in those days, we wasn't quite exposed to as much of technology, hardly any technology like young people are today. You can just open up your social media and find all kinds of information there. But when we were young and growing up, we were required to go to school, get an education, and the most of all we had as far as technology was a rotary telephone, one that you put your finger in and it rolls back and dial the next number and it rolls back until you have dialed the number that you're calling. And that's all that we had aside from a black and white TV. And no, I'm not that old, but I'm old enough to know that that's how we grew up. We didn't have all the technology that's going on today. But in any case, like I said, I was the sixth child out of 9. And so my oldest sister, who was 35 at the time, I think I was 11 years old, she had 8 children, and she passed away at age 35, leaving 8 children behind. And so my parents, brought in all of her 8 children. So we all grew up together. So you're still talking about 8 children plus 8 children, that's 16, and plus we had a neighborhood a child that came and lived with us as well. We had fun. We played outdoors. Like I said, we didn't have technology. We didn't stay inside and stay in front of the TV and so forth. We got a lot of exercise in after we came home from school, did our chores, did our homework, and then we were allowed to go outside and play. But as time went on, as I became to be a teenager, one thing about the fathers and mothers back in my day and time was that they didn't have open discussions about sex, about relationships. They didn't talk much about anything. Matter of fact, you weren't even allowed to sit in the same room with the older people, okay? Because they were afraid that you would hear something that you shouldn't be hearing as a young person. So that kind of left us kind of open to chance of experimenting or listening to our friends of what they did and so forth, and it was almost like, to have your young friends talk about their relationships and the things that they did kind of made you feel like you were kind of left out on something. But, we didn't really get much instruction. We got a lot of don't do. You dare not ask why not don't do certain things. You just had to listen to your parents and do like they told you to do. But some of us, like myself, being young, we ended up with a boy, and then you ended up in trouble, you ended up pregnant, and then you ended up married. As in my case, I was just turning, I was 16, just turning 17. And so by the time I was 23 years old, I was married and had 4 children. And so I know what it is to go through emotional traumas from the time that you're young. And one thing that parents must understand and must realize is that, young people need a lot of affirmation. They need a lot of encouragement. And they need for parents to be open with them and have these very vital discussions about love and relationship and sex and marriage and not only those things, but about education, about, exploring the world. When you're young, you get so tied up into a lot of emotional feelings for someone else that you lose your way and you get sidetracked and distracted from your goals and your objectives that will carry you through life. And so you end up with a baby, or you end up with some kind of incurable disease or something like that. And all of that impacts your life. All of that changes you forever. Soul wounds never go away, but they do heal over time. But the scars of those wounds are still there. And so, being a young person, as I was leaving home, I didn't spend time enough to get the proper instructions that I needed before I got married. For someone to sit down and talk to me about, what it means to be married and what it means to be in a relationship and so forth. So I learned by trial and error, and that is. Trust me, that's not the way you want to go. You don't want to have to learn by trial and error. It makes for a very difficult life and makes for a very tough life. But in today's times, young people have so much access to information, and they can have access to good information or to negative information, positive or negative information. And if they get the wrong kind of information, then they'll think that, that is legitimate information. And it really behooves our parents to keep your children close and to be that type of parent. Not that I'm trying to run your home. I don't want to be accused of that, but from what I'm just speaking from my own personal experience, that had I had a closer relationship with my parents, in that they talked to me about these things of life and so forth, and they were open with me, I think a lot of things that happened to me would not have happened. And basically that's what I'm saying to you all, is that if you have young people still in your home, sometimes parents become afraid that if they open up and talk about sex, or talk about different things, whether it's alcohol, whether it's drugs, whether it's sex, or whatever the case may be, they think that they're opening up their child to and giving them permission to go and have sex, or to go and have a drink. Sorry about that. But that is not the case. You have to give them information so that they would be equipped to know what the difference is between right and wrong. Because when you're young, when you're 14 and 15 and 16 and 17, you don't really know right and wrong in a lot of areas. You know the difference between good and bad, and what's evil and what's good. But we're talking about decision-making processes, And remember, I talked to you about the soul. The soul consists of our mind, which retains information and process information, our will, that we make a decision to do something or to not to do something, and our emotions, which 95% of the time we get caught up in the emotions of life instead of the information in life. And so our emotions can be very tricky, and they can kind of trick us into thinking what we're feeling is right and true. And then we start acting on those emotions, and that is really not the proper way to govern your life. But most of us, these are the mistakes that we make in life. And so we end up married, we end up abused, we end up sexually abused, we end up in divorces, we end up just missing that mark. And where you're supposed to be in chapter 1 of your life, you end up skipping 10 chapters, and before you know it, the chapter 10, where you're supposed to, maybe at that point in time in your life to, get married, or have a family and whatnot. You done skipped 9, 10 chapters already, and it's really tough when you forfeit your youth, your youthfulness. But we're going to get back on that track in a minute. I wanted to share with you today that we're going to be making what I call the 3-bean soup. And here in the U.S., we're going to be heading towards the fall and towards the winter. And so wherever you may be at in the world, this still is a really great soup to have at any given time. But what I like to do is that I like to store things up, cook it, store it up. When I'm hungry, I need it to just pull it out. And generally, I just cook for myself. And so what we're going to do is, what I did earlier was that I got a big chicken breast, okay? And you can do a big chicken breast, or you can do 2 good-sized thighs, either one. And I do encourage you to leave some fat on there, because the fat kind of gives it an extra flavor, but not too much fat, okay? But I cooked this chicken breast earlier this morning, and I cut it up in chunks, okay? You don't want to shred the chicken. You want to cut it up in chunks. And so what I cooked it in, I filled my pot up halfway, or a little over half, with water. And I used this particular seasoning, Calado, and maybe some of you may recognize it, but this is a really great seasoning to put in the pot. And you don't want your chicken to boil, all right? You don't want it to, don't even bring it to a boil. You want to put it on a low heat and let it kind of simmer and cook, you know, maybe for an hour, hour and a half. But don't boil it, because if you boil it, you're going to get rid of all of the broth of the chicken that you really need for your soup. And so if you boil it, it's just going to all evaporate. So we don't want it to boil. We just want it to kind of cook really slow. Okay? And so once that's done, you know, it doesn't even have to be completely done, but you want to take it out from the broth and you want to dice the chicken up, debone it or keep the bone on it, whichever one you want to do. And then you want to put that chicken back into the broth. So we're going to put this, to scrape this back into the broth. All right. And I really love this dish. It's really satisfying to me, and I hope that if you decide to make it, that you'll enjoy it as well. The other thing that I wanted to tell you about is that you want to cook your rice ahead of time. You don't want to cook your rice and your rice is still either warm or hot and then you add it in the pot. You want to cook it ahead of time, and you want to cook it halfway done, because this is going to go back into the pot and it'll continue cooking with everything else that you put in there. So your rice, don't cook it all the way, but cook it ahead of time, even the night before, and just put it in the refrigerator. You know, when you cook your rice, I generally run it under some cold water to get the starch off of. You want to make sure the starch is off of the rice and drain it. All right, and so we're going to put 1.5 cups of rice in the pot. And I want you to remember that this is a soup. It's not a stew, it's a soup. So soup means there's going to be a lot of liquid in there, so you don't want your water to be absorbed by, you know, all the rice that you have to put in there. So that's 1.5 cups of rice. And this is really just something, you say, well, how much do I make if I'm feeding it for my entire family? I guess it just depends on how many that's in your family. You might just want to just double it. You want to double the amount of it. So since this is a 3-bean soup, I want to talk about the beans a little bit. You know, in our lives, we have friends, and this is especially to the young people. You have all kinds of friends, you know. You have black friends. You have possibly Indian or red-skinned friends. And you have white friends. I have all 3 of these friends, and I have some yellow friends, you know. So don't get me wrong when I'm calling out these different colors. It's just that sometimes we identify, you know, I'm a black woman, or a red-skinned woman could be of Indian, or, you know, or Caucasian. So this is what we call the Great Northern bean. It's a white bean, and all of the beans that I am using is coming from a can. And it's very important. Let me reach over here and get this for a minute. It's very important that if you're going to use canned beans, okay, which I'm using, it's up to you if you want to use raw beans, but it just takes longer to prepare this meal, and I'm just not about being in the kitchen all day. But you want to take that can of beans, because beans come with a gravy in it, and you don't want the gravy from the beans to go inside your soup. So you're going to get a strainer like this, and you're going to dump your can of beans in there, all right? Do it separately. Put it under some cold water, switch it around until you get all of that gravy, bean gravy, out, all right? And then once you do that for each one of these, you want to set it aside. And so I got my chicken in, all right? And I got my rice in, okay? So this is not a chicken and rice soup, okay? This is a 3-bean chicken soup. The rice is just giving it a little bit more, I don't know, variety to it. I want to share something with you about the rice. Now, this rice, I love this rice, and I never had tried it before. But this rice is from Lottie, all right, Lottie. And the reason why that this is such a great rice, all right, and I went to the African market, and this is where this came from. And so we have African markets around the United States, and you might have one in your hometown. But this rice is a little bit larger, a little bit longer, and a little bit thicker than you would buy some of the normal rices that we find on our grocery shelves. And I really like this rice because it stays together, it doesn't get mushy or soggy. So I recommend if you can get that type of rice from an African store, that would probably be the best rice that you can use for that. But nonetheless, prepare your rice the day before. Make sure it's cold, okay? So, like I was saying about friends to these young people, we have all different kinds of friends in our lives, and especially on social media. You don't really know who you're meeting on social media. You don't know who you're talking to on social media. You know, just yesterday, someone videoed a call into me, and I don't know, I wasn't really paying attention, and it was a very, you know, nasty video, a live nasty video, and I had pressed the button to answer it, and it was a call coming from Bangladesh, you know, and so wasn't nobody that I knew, but these are the kinds of things that our young people, you know, come in contact with. All this different content that comes over the internet, and whether it's Twitter, whether it's Facebook, whether it's Instagram, Snapchat, TikTok, you know, wherever the case may be, they are bombarded with all kinds of information. And it's no wonder that sometimes they may get confused on who is truly their friend and who is not. I mean, I'm an older person, and, you know, dealing on social media, you know, you can't really determine whether someone is your friend or not just because you're having long-term conversations with them on social media. And I'll leave that for another day because I can really tell you some stories about that one, but I won't even go there with that. I want to kind of stick to talking to the young people about, you know, their goals and their aspirations and things that they want to do, and how we as an adults need to be there to be supportive of them. You know, I share with you how I have 4 adult children, and they all are college graduates, and, you know, whatever they decide to do with their master's degrees and so forth, you know, it's on them. But they made a decision to get to further their education. And it's important that we encourage our young people to further their education, if possible. You know, there's some things that I'm working on and want to plan, you know, and do for young people through a nonprofit, and so I'll just leave that there. But I think that young people need a lot of encouragement, especially in these days and times. They need true leadership. They need to know that they are loved. And if you have a young person in your home, hug that young person often. I remember when I was growing up as a young person and a teenager, how I longed for my parents to give me a hug. I longed for my mom to get me up in the morning and take me for a walk and talk to me and so forth. But you know, she had, 17 kids in one household to tend to. And I was one of those kids that needed much attention from her. And it just pained me as a young person that, you know, I felt like I didn't get the attention that I needed as a young girl. And so those things like that, we never know how it might affect a young person. So if you got, whether it's 1 child, 2 children, 3 children, 4 children, or 17 kids in one household, it really is sometimes hard to work. And, you know, with me, when I had my kids working and going to school and tending to a house and tending to a marriage, you know, that's a lot, you know. And so when you got 16, 17 kids in one household, we didn't grow up poor. My dad was, he had his own business. He was a general contractor. My mom was a pastor. But, you know, they were busy trying to maintain the household. They were busy trying to make sure that we were fed and make sure that we had education and, you know, make sure that we were clothed and so forth. So that was their love for us and their objective into, you know, taking care of. But when you're a single mom and you don't have that spouse there to help you to raise your kids, sometimes it becomes very challenging and you miss out on giving your child and giving your kids all the love and affection that they need to be able to develop and grow. Yes, you may give them a nice house to live in and food on the table and clothes to wear and whatnot, you know, such as we had when we were coming up. But guess what? We didn't get, you know, the hugs, you know. I didn't grow up in a family where we hugged, you know, a lot and whatnot. We had a good provider and we had a good spiritual leader in our home. But, you know, for some kids, they need to be comforted. You know, they need to know that mom and dad loves them, and you need to hug your children and let them know that you love them. Whether you're a single parent or whether you're in a household with two parents, somebody needs to be giving out some love and affection to children, because I guarantee you, just like me, looking for love in all the wrong places, looking for love outside of my parents, because I long to be hugged, I long to be held, and I wanted my parents' affection. And so I don't fault them or blame them, and I'm not saying that they were bad parents for not providing that. My parents come from a time and place and era where they were workers, they were hard workers, and they took care of their families. There wasn't a lot of, you know, sugarcoating and kissy and huggy and, you know, all that kind of stuff, you know. And then in some homes you can just give them too much hugs and too much kisses, you know, and spoil the child. So you have to have balance when you're bringing up kids and so forth. And so if you have young people in your home, you know, you want to make sure that, you know, they're not going outside of the house to look for the love that they are seeking from you as a parent. And this was a grave mistake on my part, leaving home when I was so young and getting married and raising a family. It altered my life. It changed my life. I had dreams about my life. I wanted to be an airline stewardess back then, you know, but I didn't make it. And so, you know, after I raised my family, and even while I was raising my family, I decided I wanted to put myself through school. And I did. I went to school and I obtained my master's degree in criminal justice and law. I obtained my Bachelor of Science degree in criminal justice and forensic psychology. I obtained my associate's degree in paralegal. And so I was fascinated with the criminal justice system. And as I told you before, I wanted to be a judge, you know, and I didn't make it being a judge, but I do have 3 degrees and I did learn a lot. But getting back to this soup, as I was saying, that you want to make sure that you cooking this chicken in a half a pot of soup. You don't want to boil it. You just want to let it cook for about an hour. Take it out, chop it up, put it to the side. And then you want to put 1.5 cups of rice in there. And I showed you the type of rice that you should put in there. Because you got to remember, this is a soup. It's not a stew. Stew is a lot more thicker. And so you want to just keep this, make sure that it stays soupy. And so we have the kidney bean. And you can put about 1.5 cups of kidney beans in. Spread it around. Put a little bit more in there because you're going to have, you know, 2 other beans. You want to put, this is black bean. And you put 1 cup of that in, black bean, and sprinkle it around in there. I'm just going to do 1 cup of that black bean. I don't want my soup to be overpowered. And this is the Great Northern bean. So you're going to put about 1 cup of the Great Northern bean in there. because you got a few more ingredients that, you know, you're going to put in this soup. And so it's still pretty watery. It looks delicious already. I wish I could turn it up. Maybe some of you all can see it from there. Whoops. But you want to just stir that around, get it all mixed in there nice and good and whatnot. When this is all done, it really is beautiful. And like I said, if you go to my website, lovebeyondpain.com, and go to the blog section, under recipe, you'll see how it looks. I have a picture of it there. And so the other things that we're going to put in this soup is we're going to put some onions, green peppers, and mushrooms. Now, when you do your onions, green peppers, and mushrooms, you want to make sure that you're cutting the green peppers and the red onion. This is red onion. This is what really makes it look so beautiful. You want to make sure you're cutting it in long strips. So if you cut it round, slice it round, and then just cut it down the middle, that'll give you your long strips of green pepper and red onions. And this is portobello mushroom, all right? And so you want to put all of this in one pot. I'm going to scrape all of this in here. And it may look like a lot, but again, I am making it to last me a week and a half if I want to, you know, freeze it. Because what I'll do is I'll put this in containers to give me one serving, and I will freeze it. But this looks really, really beautiful inside. I don't want to tip it over too much, but it has everything in there. And so you kind of stir it around. So what you're going to do with this now is that you're going to put this on a low heat. You don't want this to boil, okay? You want this just to kind of simmer like, and so the vegetables in it can cook. So I'm going to put that on over here. And I'm going to put it on a low heat, and I'll put a top on it. And just let it cook. One of the other things that I do add in there is some garlic salt and some black pepper. And so you can season yours to your own taste and whatnot. But I was sharing with you that you can go to your grocery store and you can pick up that. And that's what you want to cook your chicken in. Okay? Alrighty. So that is called the 3-bean chicken soup. And I will probably have some of that for my dinner. But getting back to our discussion with the young people is that I'm a very open person, and I would like to think that I have been a very open parent, you know, that my children could talk to me about anything that was on their mind, you know. But kids, especially teenagers, they need for us to have an open heart and an open mind, because we know what it's like in our adulthood now to go through soul wounds and emotional trauma from being in a relationship that didn't work out. So just imagine, you know, young people having to deal with soul wounds and deal with, you know, relationships that have gone bad. And then before you know it, because they're so brokenhearted, they'll go and they'll start drinking, or they'll go and start giving their bodies away, you know, for sex. They even, you know, will bring themselves down to the point wherein they'll take what they think is something of value, such as an iPhone or cell phone or money or something like that. And, you know, some young boy can come along and just offer them an iPhone or offer them some money, and because they already have low self-esteem, they'll take that money or they'll take that iPhone to have sex with that person. And so we don't want our young girls to be brought up that way. We want them to be confident. We want them to have courage. We want them to believe in themselves And we want them to know that no matter what they've gone through in life, that life is not over for them neither. And they don't have to debase themselves. They don't have to bring themselves down low because they may have ended up pregnant, or they may have ended up doing something that really altered their lives. We need to give them as much encouragement as we possibly can, especially when they've gone through a traumatic incident, because it's during those times that the soul needs to be lifted up, that person's spirit needs to be inspired, you know. And if you have or know someone who is young, who is a teenager, who has ended up in trouble, who has ended up pregnant, you know, don't shame her. You know, don't shame her, because the boy is just as responsible as the girl. You know, but a lot of times we shame the girl, and then the boys, they just go off and start another life or into another relationship. And you know, I think that men ought to start, you know, really talking to these young men about how they affect young girls' lives when they do things to them. And so if there is someone that you know, or someone that's in your family, or someone that's in your household that ended up pregnant or ended up with some kind of disease and whatnot, you know, the best thing that we can do is continue to encourage her and continue to let her know that her life is not over, and give her that support that she needs to continue on in life and to make something good out of her life, because now she has a child that she's responsible for. You know, and a lot of times when a child comes from a child, that baby ends up being the responsibility of the grandmother, you know. And so, you know, grandmas, yeah, we're grandmothers, but we have lives too. And when our children go out and end up getting pregnant and coming back home with a baby, and we're just now trying to get them out of the house, and here they're coming back home with a baby, you know, you be raising babies for the rest of your life. And so, but in any case, let's continue to encourage our young girls, to let them know that God loves them. Let them know that there is no mistake that's bigger than God. Let them know that God has forgiven them. God loves them, and you love them too, you know. And try to get them some help. Try to get them some mental help. Try to get them some other type of help as far as furthering their education, or whatever their goals may be prior to them ending up pregnant or ending up in a relationship. We have a lot of young people that's committing suicide, you know, from being bullied in school, and for just feeling shamed about what they've done or what they've gone through, and they go off and they kill themselves. Well, suicide is never the answer for anybody, you know. But when someone feels that they don't have the support at home, and there's no one for them to turn to, no one for them to talk to, then they go and they just take matters into their own hand, and they end their lives. And we don't want our young people ending their lives in that way, because they're going through a traumatic incident, because they're going through emotional traumas in their life. Emotional trauma is real. Soul wounds are real. Doesn't matter whether you are a Christian, whether you are a Muslim, whether you're Jewish. It doesn't matter if you're black, if you're white, if you're purple. It doesn't matter what color you are. Soul wounds are real, and soul wounds can be very damaging if they're not handled and if they're not addressed. And so my heart goes out to young people. I have always had an interest in young people. I was a guardian ad litem, and what that is that I was assigned by the court system to oversee young people who was being sexually abused. I was assigned by the court and given cases where I had to go to homes because a grandfather was sexually abusing his granddaughter or granddaughters. And I had to make a judgment call whether to remove those girls from that particular home and charge the grandfather with sexual abuse. This particular grandfather told his girls after the grandmother had died that they owed him. Get that. Here is a grandfather in his 80s telling his granddaughters, now that your grandmother is dead and gone, you girls owe me. And he forced them into having sex with him. And so one of the girls, the younger girl, reported the grandfather to Child Protection Agency, and the case was assigned to me. And so it was a difficult case, and I still feel it. I still feel it. I still feel the emotional pain of what those girls went through. I had to sit in court. And because the girls were minors, they didn't allow them to come into court with the grandfather. They put us in a room with a monitor. And again, excuse me, I'm kind of warm. They put us in a room with a monitor. And I was told by my superiors at the time that I had to sit in front of this monitor with the girls as their representative, as a guardian ad litem, and I had to do that. And so they told me that I could not show any emotion and any reaction to what was being said in testimony, and that if I did that, that would cause the case to be thrown out. And that was hard for me. That was very, very hard for me to sit there and have to listen to the gory details of what this grandfather did to his granddaughters. But in any case, he was convicted and found guilty. And so the next thing that I had to do was to find a home to put these two girls in that was safe for them. This was a tough job, but because I cared for young girls and I cared for children, and I cared what happened to them, I decided to be this advocate, for sexually abused children. And sexual abuse, it doesn't matter how young. They can be babies right out the womb. 5-month-olds have been sexually abused, and you're talking about trauma. That's a lot of trauma to deal with. And those scars continue to last throughout that child's life, and they go on to make decisions that, continue to ruin their lives. So let's try to encourage, didn't mean to get so teary-eyed, but that's just me. I have a soft heart. Let's try to encourage young people. Let's try to love them, hug them, and let them share their hearts with you. We are the leaders, we are the adults, and they need someone to talk to. And who better to talk to than the one closest to them? Don't shut down because you want to be angry as a mother, and you want to fuss and cuss and just tell the daughter to get out because you're angry because now she's pregnant. Well, where is she going to go? Who is she going to turn to? So we are our children's keeper. We are our brother's keeper. We are our sister's keeper. And it's up to us to heal the brokenhearted. That's why Jesus came. He came to heal our wounds. He came to heal what was broken in us. And he came to save us and to forgive us of our sins. So if he can forgive us of our sins, then why can't we forgive our children of their sins and whatever it is that they get mixed into out there on social media platforms and whatnot? The only thing you can do is continue to direct and continue to encourage them and continue to build them up and build their self-esteem up and let them know that they are valued. Let them know that they are precious in God's sight and they're precious in your sight. And not only talk the talk, but walk the walk and hug them. So if you have children in your home, hug them every morning before they go out to school. Let them know that you love and you care for them. Because when they go outside your door and for the 8 to 9 hours that they're outside of your home, somebody else is whispering in their ear. Someone else is giving them information, and it's powerful out there, It's almost, sometimes a parent is so helpless to the misinformation that is out there. But we just got to keep at it and keep at it to continue to save our young people. And so I hope that you got something out of today's message. This was really directed to young people. Just let them know that your life is not over. You know, no matter what happens to you, your life is not over. And I want to encourage you. And young people need to be rewarded. They need, when they do good, reward them. Give them something special. Let them know that they are valued, you know. Not that you're trying to pay them to be good, but because they're being good, you want to let them know that, you know, here, take this, you know, enjoy this. That's what God does to us, you know. He doesn't reward bad, but he continues to love us. But when we do good in God's sight, and our Father, you know, and I want to get from God. I want to say our Father. He is our Father. And so a good father and a good mother rewards their children for the good things that they're doing in their lives. So thank you for joining me today on the Big Thumbs Up Thursday. I want to give everybody out there a shout out and give you a big thumbs up and let you know that you can do whatever you set your mind to. Fear can take over you, but if you just go ahead and walk and run, even though you might feel fear, you'll come out of it. You know, I go through fear too. Trust me, I go through anxiety too. But I keep telling myself, you can do this. You can do this. Don't worry. Just go ahead and start. Get yourself at the starting line. And when that gun goes off and say, go, you just go for it. Don't worry about how it looks. Don't worry about whether you're making a mistake, because that's how you learn. You learn from the mistakes that you made in anything that you do. You know, okay? So don't think that because you failed in something that life is over and you never get back up again. No, I don't believe in that. I don't believe in that. No matter how many times you fall down and you fail, you get back up again and you encourage yourself if nobody else will. So thank you for joining me today. I enjoy being with you on each and every Thursday for the Big Thumbs Up. And so join me next week. Again, you can find that recipe, the 3-bean soup, on my website at lovebeyondpain.com. Go to the blog section and click on recipe, and you'll see a beautiful picture of how this soup has turned out. Thank you for joining me. God bless you. Bye.